What befalls others today may be your own fate tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe.
That's a good line.
It is a good one.
That's a good line. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screen Weens, episode number 53.
Oh boy.
Last week we talked about two of the greatest movies ever made, The Brown Bunny and The Brown Bunny. Today we're talking about some shitty movie no one's ever heard of, Harakiri. Never heard of it.
No,
it's not like it's like number 4 on Letterboxd or anything.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, and then we watched its remake, Harakiri, Death of a Samurai.
By Takashi Miike. And hopefully, this will be the one that, the one Miike film that Thomas likes. We shall see.
We shall see.
Alright, but before that, of course, we're going to hang out. We're going to talk about what else we've been doing this week. Thomas? I've been sweating a lot.
Yeah, I've been sweating a lot in the last, 10 minutes. Let's see. I read some more manga. I started Hajime no Ippo and got about 80 chapters into that. And I read, a couple more arcs in My Hero. I'm trying to get caught up. But, yeah, aside from that, nothing much.
Hey,
I
Pierre
watched...
was reading the new My Hero today.
Who?
Pierre.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm not caught up to current. I'm still, probably 3 arcs behind, but it shouldn't take me long. Probably by the end of this week. But then I also watched a handful of, Simpsons episodes, and I checked out, I rewatched the first season of Disenchantment, and then I watched the second one.
How was that?
It was pretty alright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that's, fun enough.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more out of the second season.
I feel you.
And I felt like it didn't step up in as many ways as it could have, but overall I still found it enjoyable. So, yeah. I look forward to a third season if they ever get greenlit for it. I don't know if they've announced that or not, but I'm sure they probably did. Matt Groening's got a lot of star power behind his name.
Yeah, he does.
But, yeah, pretty much been my week. What about you?
I watched 2 more James Bond films. I'm trying to keep up. It's just really hard because they all fucking suck. But we're finally on the Pierce Brosnan ones, so I just have to get through 3 more before I can watch the Pierce Brosnan ones. And I'm hoping to enjoy those. I'm hoping that once I get to the Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig ones, I'll enjoy them a lot more. Because I've heard they're very different from the, other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 1 more film. I have the 2 Dalton films, and then I have the Brosnan films to go. And then the Craig ones. So I'm almost done, and then I can just fucking forget about James Bond until fucking No Time to Die comes out.
Yeah.
I do have to watch 2 of the other non-canon Bond films, because there's technically 3 Bond films that weren't produced by Eon Films. So there was the Casino Royale, which was directed by 7 people, and was apparently really bad, from 1967. It was more of a comedy film. It was kind of a spoof
of one of the Daniel Craig ones.
Yeah, it's the first Daniel Craig one. It's the only one that really has a canonical place. It's the first Bond film in the timeline.
Oh, okay.
And then the timeline just all fucked up after that. So, yeah, there's technically 3 Casino Royales. One of them is a hour-long teleplay that I watched. That was really bad. There's the 1967 version, and then there's the Daniel Craig version, which a lot of people consider to be the best Bond film, outside of, it's either that, Skyfall, or Goldfinger, or, it seems the highest-rated ones.
Oh, okay.
And Goldfinger's one of the best. It is the best one, by far, from what I've seen so far.
Okay.
And then I also have to watch Never Say Never Again, which is the one that Sean Connery returned to. It's directed by the guy who directed Empire Strikes Back, Irvin Kershner, who also directed RoboCop 2. And that, he came back after like 15 years or some shit. And it's pretty much just a remake of Thunderball, which was a terrible fucking movie. And I hate Sean Connery, and I think he's a terrible James Bond. So it should be good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've got your hands full with that. I don't
we also
you in your Bond marathon.
We also watched another movie for Ween Watch. We watched a movie called Assassin 33 AD, which is about a guy going back in time to kill Jesus, pretty much.
It sounds like my kind of movie. What the heck?
But then it's about the people who go back to save him.
Oh.
It was so fucking awful. But it was really fucking funny as well.
Huh. It sounds like it'd be at least somewhat interesting watch.
I thought it was very entertaining. I did that with Joe and Pierre, and then I've also been playing board games yesterday and today. I finally got someone to play Star Wars Outer Rim, which I've had for like months. I believe my mother and grandmother bought it for me, and I just, for my birthday, I want to say, which was last year, or maybe, no, I think it was Christmas. It was something like that. I've had it for like more than half a year, but I finally got to play it. It's fucking awesome. I've played 2 games now, and I'm playing one right after this podcast, actually.
Oh, cool.
And then that's mostly it. I watched a couple other things randomly. Oh, I watched this really, really good documentary I've been meaning to watch for a long time called American Movie. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one.
Yeah, that's the Mark Borchardt, is that his name?
Yeah, have you seen that?
No, I really want to, though.
It's excellent, and I really want to watch, they talk about one of the short films he's doing in it called Coven, and it's online, I found it. I do want to watch that as well.
Yeah, I want to watch that one movie he did, like, I think it's from 2011, it's called, like, The Hagstone Demon. That's one that's caught my attention.
Okay.
Yeah, but, yeah. It's pretty much all I know about him. Stuff I've heard from Cinemassacre.
And then, I did rewatch just about a week ago, I think right after we recorded the podcast or the next day, I watched the original Transformers animated movie with Pierre. I personally love that movie. Like, there's some problems with it, but I love that movie. I think it's great. Have you seen that one?
No.
Oh.
I know,
it's pretty epic.
Yeah, I know Orson Welles does, like, the
He's
main villain's voice, yeah. And I know he, like, hated working on it, or...
He hated, but he was also, like, I'm pretty sure just, like, drunk. He was just, Orson Welles was a character.
Yes.
I'll eventually pick him for a director deep dive.
Yeah, we'll get around to him one day.
Because I haven't watched fucking, what's that,
Which one?
That movie he made? The big one?
The Stranger? No. Citizen Kane.
Yeah. I was like Citizen, and I kept thinking Citizen X, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I've seen it, but it's been like so long. I watched it when I was like 14, and I didn't like movies at that point, really, so I was just like, that was a movie, I guess.
Yeah. I had a similar kind of experience. I had it on like VHS in middle school. I've got the Blu-ray for it now, but I haven't like sat down and like rewatched it. But
yeah, that's pretty much it.
Pretty eventful week for the two of us.
Yeah.
How you liking
just been working?
How you liking your new job?
I mean, it was my old job. I was working it for like a month and a half, and then I just stopped. So, but I've been enjoying it. It's been a little tough to work with kids during all this because they can't keep they're so bad at social distancing because they're children. I get it. So
yeah,
that's been a struggle, but it's been good. I love working with kids. Actually, I wasn't that's what was surprising me. Like, I really like working with kids.
Well, there you go.
Don't listen to this podcast, kids. Okay.
Yeah, don't.
Let's jump into some questions from Pierre.
All right.
These are some epic questions. He sent them to me on Facebook Messenger. Number 1. When is the best day to clean laundry?
When you need it done.
I would say Tuesday at like 3 a.m. Nobody ever does their laundry at Tuesday at 3 a.m. Yeah. Specifically Tuesday at 3 a.m. It's good luck. Trust me.
Okay.
Number 2. Is the sun Baja Blast?
Always has been.
You know, I didn't know. I'd never seen that meme until 4 days ago.
That was like the first one I had seen that meme of. I don't know if like that was like the meme that like originated it, but it was pretty good. Pretty good. I think it's been passed around. Like I've seen it a little too much now, but
yeah, happens with all of them.
Yep.
And final question: would you rather cannibalize yourself or someone else?
I mean, it depends on who the someone else is, I guess.
Like, let's say you and Lucero were in a room together, and you were stuck in there, and you could either eat a part of yourself or eat a part of Lucero. And then after one of you ate part of that person, you could be let out. Would you rather eat part of yourself or part of Lucero?
I mean, man. In that situation, I mean, I'd rather probably eat him, but I probably wouldn't be like, okay, you're the one being eaten. I'd probably try to approach it in the most fair way I probably could to
Lucero.
Figure out who's getting eaten.
I'm going to eat Lucero. Quote by Thomas Griffin.
Are you sending that to Lucero?
Yeah.
I'll tell him to listen to this to get full context. And
there's no context, Lucero. He's lying.
Yeah, you're just gonna clip it all out.
I'm just gonna clip it. This will be like an hour-long podcast of just that on a loop.
Ah, there we go.
I'm going to eat Lucero. All right, this should be a pretty short podcast today.
Yeah,
like maybe even sub an hour, because when talking about a remake, that you don't really talk about both films' fucking plots, because they're usually the exact same, and this one is. It does have some key differences, in my opinion, but not necessarily to do with the plot.
Yeah,
but I think it does have differences in some of its theming and definitely its execution of its storytelling.
Yeah.
So I guess let me move my mic. Let's talk about fucking the central plot of Harakiri in general. Actually, I think it's important to talk about the creator of Harakiri first, because a lot of his life and went into why he made this movie. So Masaki Kobayashi was a pretty epic guy. I'm saying that because he's best known for the epic trilogy, The Human Condition. And he also made Harakiri and another samurai film called Samurai Rebellion. And then he also made Kwaidan, which is like a pretty early example of Japanese anthology horror films. And I've heard it's fucking incredible. I really want to watch it. It's pretty beefy. It's like 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
But I'm gonna hopefully watch that soon. And Kobayashi really fucking hated war. He was drafted into the war, and he hated it. He was quoted saying that it was like the epitome of like all that is wrong with humanity.
I'd say that's a pretty fair statement.
The Human Condition, when he made it, it's literally a trilogy based on the effects of World War II on, like, pacifists and, like, socialists and stuff. And he made that from 1959 to 1961. And in 1962, he made Harakiri. And that contains that same themes of anti-war sentiments. And also how he really fucking hates pretty much the myth of the samurai. Because the samurai, especially in, like, 50s, 60s, and even going into, like, 70s Japanese cinema, are, like, fucking the gods of cinema.
Yeah.
And he really didn't like how they were being glorified, so he made Harakiri, which is pretty much the ultimate anti-samurai movie.
Yeah.
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 So the basic premise of Harakiri is it takes place in the late 1620s, my bad. It takes place like the end of the Edo period, I believe. So it's one of the big times of peace, and during peace times, samurai don't have anything to do. Like, they don't have a master. Masterless samurai are referred to as ronin. So it's mostly talking about how ronin wander around not having any fucking clue what to do because their only skill set that they seem to have is to fight and to kill. So they just kind of wander around and fucking,
Yeah. So
beg for food.
There's this one house that's still standing called the House of Lee. And a story is being spread around about, basically a ronin who goes there to, commit Harakiri. Basically because he can't find any work, he doesn't want the shame of being just like, not doing anything, so he just kind of wants to end his life, in the way that he sees honorable. But they decide to give him a job. So this story spreads and it starts bringing along a lot of ronin who are coming and sharing comments.
And this hadn't even happened to the Lee clan. They had simply heard about this.
Yeah, this is like a trend going on in the around the area. So basically, they'll keep getting ronin showing up, and the rumor goes that some of them have been like paid just to like fuck off and go away. Like, basically, like, we're not going to give you any work, and we don't want to clean up your body. Here, just take this some money and go. So this is very important to the context of the film. It begins with the House of Lee, and we follow Sugomo? Or Sugamo?
Sugomo, I believe.
Yeah. Hanshiro.
Dude, so this guy, it's the fucking... Hold on. So this guy is played in the original by Tatsuya Nakadai, who is the fucking... he plays Hidetora Ichimonji in fucking Ron, who's the old guy.
Oh, okay.
And he had like this was only like 20 years later, and they had to like put a bunch of like prosthetics and makeup on him to make him look that old. But as soon as I remembered that, and he was in Seven Samurai and fucking High and Low, and I think he's like the main chief detective in High and Low, so I was so excited to watch this, and I think he's fucking incredible in this movie.
Yeah, no, for sure, his performance is like great in this film. He just has like such this desolate look on his face like throughout most of it, but like when the time comes for him to be like more of an intimidating figure, he transitions very well. It's almost like seamless.
Yeah, yeah, and there's like parts where he's like maniacally menacing, like with his laughter. Like he has a bunch of different things he can do. And one of my big praises for the remake actually is I really like the guy who plays Tsugumo in that as well.
Yeah,
at least personally, I don't think he's as good, but I think he delivers a lot of that same grandiose bravado.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I have issues with some of the other performances, not like huge issues with some of the other performances in the remake, while this one in the original, I think that pretty much all the performances I really enjoyed, at least.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I preferred the original, and pretty much all the cases across the board for, like, the characters and their casting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think that the original is, like, far superior, but I actually was surprised, I'll just say it now, that I do think there are reasons to watch both. Like, I think that there are merits where the remake stands on its own, at least for me personally.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the remake, it cuts the beginning section down, like, a little bit.
Yeah, I was watching it today, and I was like, whoa, this is happening now? What's going on? Like, 40 minutes in, I'm like, this was like an hour and 20 minutes into the original.
And they like, block the, pretty much all of the flashback for the most part, like, into one segment, where, wasn't it more segmented in the original?
Yeah, I think that's the main difference in execution for the movies, is, I really like the storytelling, like how they tell the story. It really makes it feel like a suspense film in the original.
Yeah,
while the remake feels more like a melodrama. And I don't think either of those are bad. I just personally prefer the execution of the original. However, the middle section getting more screen time in the remake, I think really does add to the themes that remake is going for.
Yeah. Let's see.
So, fucking, the main character, he shows up at the Lee household, and he's like, hey, can I borrow your yard to commit suicide, pretty much. That's the main intent. And, the head,
he's the Daimyo's senior counselor, Saito Kaguya.
Yeah, he's the head retainer, pretty much.
I wrote.
So Saito, he's like, let me tell you a little story about how my life got turned upside down. So he tells the story of Motome. He was a young samurai who shows up, and pretty much he wants to commit Harakiri. Seppuku. Apparently they're just I don't know if they're like the exact same thing. Yeah. They say both. I'm kind of confused why there's two terms. Do you know why?
Yeah, I looked it up. So, Harakiri is like the general term for it, and seppuku means like the same thing, but seppuku is like the written term. And when like being adapted into movies and like being like written into like books and stuff, they'll usually like have like seppuku be like that kind of like high class way of pronouncing it. But yeah, it's the same thing.
I just want to stop this real quick to talk about the highest rated review for the original Harakiri on Letterboxd.
What does it
because
say?
I do think it's a joke review, but they still think they gave it a 10 out of 10. And I just think it is really funny because I think it's really funny. It says, oh, okay, so when a woman is miraculously hyper-competent in combat, she's perceived as a Mary Sue. But when an aging man does the same, it's the third highest rated film on Letterboxd.
Oh.
Oh. Anyway, this movie's fantastic. So, he starts talking about how that guy wants to commit Harakiri, and it pretty much goes that they make him do it. He says, okay, and they think he's just trying to get money. Yeah. They kind of trick him. They're like, yeah, you can go talk to our Lord. And he's like all excited, and they're like, just kidding.
Yep.
Our Lord's not even here.
Yeah. So he ends up having to switch over to the robes, and they see his weaponry, which is bamboo.
Fake, pretty much. It's bamboo, like, training swords.
Mm-hmm. So they're like, oh, fuck, let's make him do it with this anyway, instead of, like, lending him a actual blade that cuts. So, yeah, basically he goes, and he basically is like, look, I'll come back and I'll do this. Just please, I give me like a day, 2 days, please. But they're like, nope. So they make him commit seppuku with a bamboo sword, and then his second, which is the guy who cuts off his head once he slices open his guts, cuts off his head, and then that's where that story ends. And basically, he's trying to scare him out. And he's like, "Look, if you leave now, I'll turn my head and pretend this didn't happen." And Tsugumo is just like, "No, I think, like, I'm here to do it. Like, come on, take me out there." So they go out, and basically they're about to do it, and he's like, "Who's my second?" And he's like, "Oh, this guy over here is your second." And he's like,
he's like, "I would like,
I didn't write the names of these.
Kawabe Umenosuke, I believe. I believe is the first one he names, who was the second for Motome. And he's mysteriously not there.
Yeah, and while we're on the subject of this guy, I like his actor a lot in the original.
Yeah, I don't think he's, like, bad in the remake.
It just did, the character didn't have, like, the same amount of build-up or presence that he did in the original.
Yeah, exactly. Also, like, the original guy, he has a very interesting, like, well-defined face.
Yeah, lots of angles which make him look a little villainous. I'm sure he's probably not in real life, but in terms of, like, movie-type
we don't
casting,
know that. Maybe he's a villain.
Maybe he is. You know, I'd like to assume people aren't villains over the fact that they are, but that's probably less realistic. Anyway. But yeah, so I thought his performance was great in the original. A little lackluster from the guy in the remake, but it really wasn't as, like, pronounced of a character in that one.
Yeah, like, I don't really blame the actor for the remake, just because, like, the focal point wasn't really on these three retainers that they focus on in the original, so it doesn't really matter to me, but I agree, he's fantastic in the original. So he's not there, he's apparently at home sick.
Yeah.
And he's like, I must insist, so they send a messenger to go get him. But the messenger's just like, they wouldn't let me see him, he's too sick. He's like, "Oh, I'm dying." So he's like, "I'm sorry, you have to choose another person." So he says two other names, Yazaki Hayato and Omodaka Hikokuro.
Yeah.
Kuro. And they are also both mysteriously sick from, like, for a few days they haven't shown up. So obviously,
they start to get freaked out.
Saito's like,
what the fuck is this guy?
Excuse me? And they all decline to come. So, Hanshiro, I'll call him Hanshiro. That's an easier name to pronounce. So, the main character, Hanshiro, he starts laughing, and he calls Bushido, which is, like, the way of the samurai. He's like, "It's a fucking facade. Fuck you." And he then recounts his story. So he admits that he does know Motome after all. He admits that Motome was the son of pretty much his best friend. And Motome grew up knowing his daughter. And they were, like, best friends, and they obviously had crushes on each other. And when his clan, which was, like, a massive clan who had, like, 1,200 samurai on duty, got abolished by the shogun, his lord committed seppuku, and because Hanshiro was his most senior samurai, he was going to commit seppuku as well. However, his closest friend, Motome's father, performed seppuku to keep him alive, pretty much.
Yeah. So,
and his lord, because of that, his lord was like, "You cannot kill yourself. You have to raise them." So he does. He raises both Motome and Miho, his daughter.
Yep.
And he rents, like, a small little hovel in the slums, and he makes paper umbrellas for a living. And I really like that they kept that in both, because I just think that's a neat thing. He's like, he makes umbrellas.
Yeah. And I feel like it's around this point where his, like, belief in, like, the Code of the Samurai starts to, like, diminish a bit.
Because at this point he's like, if being a samurai can't keep your family safe and provide for them, what's the use of it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and he seems to be like very fulfilled, like giving this life to Motome and Miho. So what ends up happening?
This is also one of the places where the story will branch compared to when you look at the remake and the original. In the original, it cuts back. He tells this story in like 3 big chunks, I think. And it will cut back and he'll talk to Saito before more. But literally in the remake, right about this point, it just keeps going for another like 30 minutes. Like they dedicate like a 40-minute chunk and it just goes for it.
And then they do segment it towards the end once it gets to like the samurai. But
yeah, they do cut back right afterwards, pretty much.
But yeah, so basically...
So he raises them, Motome grows up, and he becomes like a teacher, and Miho is trying to... somebody's trying to arrange a marriage to Miho, pretty much, and Hanshiro's like, I don't want that for her. And he's like, Motome loves her, and I respect him, and I've raised him right, and my friend raised him right. I think he would be a good match. So they get married pretty much, and they have a son, Kingo, who's very cute in both adaptations.
Yeah. And then, basically it's around this point where shit hits the fan. The mother, or his daughter,
Miho gets very sick. She gets a fever.
Which ends up spreading to the kid. They've literally like sold everything they can.
Yeah. Motome sells everything, and he this isn't like he sells his swords, but nobody really knows until
after he's dead.
Until he's dead, pretty much.
Yeah.
But then, and Motome sells all this stuff before Kingo gets sick. He sells it to take care of his wife, and then Kingo falls ill, and Hanshiro gets really upset because Motome has no money now. But he says, hey, I know a money... He lies. He knows what he's going to do. He knows he's going to go try to get money by pretending to commit Harakiri.
Yeah.
And he says he knows a moneylender, that he would be back. In the remake, all he says is, I have an idea. And then he's like, bye.
Yeah, he doesn't elaborate. He just says he has an idea, stares longingly at his wife and child for a minute, and then he runs out the door.
And he never comes back. Later in that night,
I mean, he does, just not alive.
Well, yeah. The 3 people that were really responsible for his death, like Saito is also, but the 3 people that really convinced Saito to make him do it show up, which is those 3 retainers that are missing at home.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically just kind of mock him. They
bring his mutilated body, they laugh at him, and they say, yep, we don't let people back out.
Yeah.
And then they showed him the bamboo blades to mock him some more.
And this like breaks Hanshiro's character, because he goes over to his sword and he goes, I never even like considered selling this. Like, this should have been like an option to me. Kind of further cementing like that kind of like samurai code, kind of digging his grave here. Because it was like a remnant of that, which is why he held on to it. But yeah, basically, so they drop off his body and they leave. And then shortly after that, we find out in the next few days that Miho and Kingo die.
And Miho both die, yeah. And then Kingo dies first, and then pretty much Miho just kind of loses the will to live and dies the next day.
Yep. And then that...
And then he completes his story, and he's like, see, I do want to die. I want to die more than anything so that I can be reunited with the people that I care about.
Yeah.
But he also explains that, like, when I see them, they're going to ask if justice has been exacted for their deaths, pretty much. So he asks Saito if he has any statement of regret. And he says that if Saito does, he'll die without saying another word. And then Saito calls Motome a despicable extortioner who got exactly what he deserved, and he boasts about how suicide bluffs aren't the way of the samurai, and that samurai would never, like, the house of the Lee house is much too honorable for any of that.
Yeah.
And Hanshiro's like, you sure about that? He pretty much goes, you sure?
He just tosses out 3 top knots onto the ground in front of him.
Well, he does 2 first.
Oh, yes.
And it reveals the 2, like, he runs at 2 of them and chops off their top knots. And then, it's actually Hikokuro who was the big guy. I was wrong with his name.
Oh, okay.
He shows up to challenge him to a duel because he had been warned about the other 2 pretty much losing their top knots. So he shows up and they have a brief but tense sword fight, which is like where you see all those fucking stills from, pretty much. Like, if you've seen a still from Harakiri, it's probably from that sword fight in the field.
Yeah, and holy shit, this sequence and the original is leagues above the one that they present in the remake. One of the things, there's a couple things I could like comment on this scene. One of which being in the remake they decided to like kind of group his encounter with like all 3 of these samurai, and he just
instantly takes out the first 2.
Yeah, and it's just like,
it reminds me of fucking Sheev Palpatine in the episode 3.
Yeah,
when they show up to arrest him, and he just instantly takes out 3 of the 4 of them.
And man, the like cinematography on this one, like on the remake, was like all over the place. In the original, one of the things that I really like about this, I think Every Frame a Painting did a video on this, like, that I saw a long time ago. But basically, like, you can tell that they're all like filming from the same like side every time, and it makes it so it's like not very disorienting when you're seeing like the change in perspective, because it's all like shot from like, let's say, like Hanshiro's like left side, so like the camera is always over there. But in the remake, they're like bouncing back and forth between like the left and right of them, and it's like just super like disorienting and messes up like the kind of like spatial awareness.
Which is really surprising, because I think the cinematography in the remake is really good for the most part.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that the final action sequences in both are really good. I still think I prefer the original, because there are just a few shots in the remake that I think are a little subpar, but I think that the cinematography in the remake for the final action sequence captures that same essence pretty well.
Yeah.
And also during this final sequence, or this fight with fucking Hikokuro, he suffers what's called a double disgrace, because both his top knot is taken and his sword is broken. And those pretty much signify the same thing. Like, they don't deserve to live, pretty much, when looking at, like, the Bushido code.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. He finishes his story, throws out the 3rd top knot to show that, like, he indeed did take these 3 men out. And
he says, like, you talk about fucking, you say that samurai, you all have this code of honor, but I don't see any of these 3 committing suicide. I see them hiding. I see them concealing their dishonor, waiting for their hair to grow back. And he says that despite the Lee's clan's pride and its martial history, it seems that the code of the samurai is a facade even for them.
Yeah.
And then Saito's, like, really fucking pissed. So he calls Hanshiro a madman, and he orders him to die, pretty much.
And then it's like a 1v fucking, like, 25.
No, it's, like, more... It's literally, like... I feel like there's, like, 80 guys, but...
Yeah.
Because, like... A big thing here is, like, no one in this palace had seen combat, really, like, real combat.
So a lot of them, like, don't attack. Like, they're really, really hesitant to attack. That's why he's like, I don't even think that Hanshiro in general is, like, an amazing swordsman. I think that's one of the big things I like about this is, like, a lot of his combat seems pretty sloppy. Like, he hadn't fought in a really long time. But he had fought. Like, that's the big thing. Like, he knows how to fight, no matter how sloppy he is.
Yeah. I would definitely say he was, like, a high-status, like, samurai at one point.
I think that's obvious, but like, he hadn't fought. He says he hadn't fought in 16 years. Yeah. And I think that goes, like, that's shown really well, because a lot of his moves are really sloppy in comparison.
Yeah. But a lot of the time, like, he'll be, like, pinned. Like, there'll be, like, just a mob of guys in front of him and behind him, and he'll, like, face one, and you'll see that, like, the people behind him are they're, like, antsy. Like, they're like, oh, should I step in? Shouldn't I? And then as soon as, like, they go to, he's already, like, seen that he's got this mob of people behind him, and he can, like, counteract. And, he keeps this up for quite a while. He ends up going inside the house and basically causing a rampage through there. He takes out a good few samurai.
He kills 4 of them and, like, critically wounds 8.
Yeah. And
but eventually he goes into the room with this. There's this big red ceremonial piece of armor. It's in both, and it's very important for the theming of the film that it's always, like, kind of in the background. It's shown a few times, and it very obviously represents, like, the fallen valor. It's just kind of sitting there as a ceremonial piece. Like, nobody wears it. It's just a decoration. How, like, their facade of samurai-ness is just it's just decoration.
Yeah, it's also, like, I was reading a little bit, like, on the red armor, and apparently, like, it's, like, a great sign of wealth, too, which is, like, another, like, knife in the back.
I think that's also a big thing. I feel like the original focuses a lot on why the samurai code sucks, and the remake really focuses on the wealth disparity of, like, people. Like, I feel like it's more focusing on, like, poverty in the remake more than not being a samurai kind of thing.
Yeah, because, like, the attitude of the original, I don't think it's, like, an anti-peace film, given, like, the context of, like, the director and stuff, but, like, I feel like someone could, like, take it that way just based off, like, the fact that it's like, oh, these peaceful times have, like, softened the samurai and whatnot and allowed, like, these types of things to happen, and, like, all these people be employed from, like, or unemployed from, like, a time of peace. Whereas the remake, I feel like, kind of, like, dives deeper into that, like, theming and kind of... It's trying to
contextualize that a little more.
Yeah.
Which I think does have I don't think is necessarily needed. I think the original is a fucking incredible movie. I was blown away personally. So I don't necessarily think that the contextualization is needed, but I think that it's interesting that that's what Miike wanted to do with the film. I think it's an interesting step to take, and I do enjoy the remake quite a bit because of it. Like, even if it was unneeded for that, I think that was a really interesting way to go, and I think that's why I would say that the remake does stand on its own as, like, a pretty good, like, a great film, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like, I might have, potentially, if I had seen that one first, I might have liked it. I don't know if I would have liked it more having seen the original, but I'm glad I got to see, like, the original first, honestly, because, like, God, like, the way it tells the story with, like, the sequence of events and the way it just, like, unfolds and the tension of it was just, like...
A lot of the storytelling in the original reminds me of the storytelling of Rashomon. Have you seen Rashomon? I can't remember.
No.
By Kurosawa. That movie's fucking amazing. But the sequence of events plays out pretty similarly, in my opinion. There's a lot of people telling their story in Rashomon, and it, like, does flashbacks like that and reveals things, so.
Okay. Do you want to talk about some of the other, like, kind of like differences in what they do in the remake?
Let's just finish off the plot because a thing happens at the end I want to talk about. So he's about to die. He throws the armor on the ground. He does that pretty much in both. Like he throws it or he knocks it over.
Yeah, he grabs it and like uses it as a shield in the original, but ends up like tossing
and then like
it down
throws it
eventually.
down. But then he gets shot by 3 gunmen and dies. In the remake, he just gets stabbed a bunch before dying. Pretty much.
A key difference. Between the original and the remake in this final scene is you see that he tries to commit Harakiri at the end of the original, but he doesn't really get to like finish. I don't think. I don't know if he finished. I think he only slit the one way on his gut and not both before he was like shot a little prematurely. But whereas in the remake he doesn't try to commit Harakiri at all. But yeah, so basically, in the original, they basically are like, all right, clean up this mess, and underplay this. Don't let this story, don't let the truth about what happened here today get out.
Yeah, they say that the people that died here died of an illness. Say that he committed Harakiri and then he makes the 3 show up, the 3 that lost their top knot show up and commit Harakiri, which I believe one of them already did. Yeah, Hikokuro, the guy who like did the big battle, he already committed Harakiri. But Hayato and Umenosuke, they're forced to commit Harakiri.
Yep. And then in the remake, we basically, like, it seems like they try to clean it up like nothing ever happened for, like, the Lord, and he comes by and he comments on, like, the armor, and he's like, oh, did you guys polish it? He's like, yes, of course we did. He's like, oh, very nice, very nice. But yeah.
And then there's a letter, so the visitor's book of the House of Lee clan is heard in voiceover. Hanshiro, who was mentally unstable, had to be forced, like Motome before him, to commit suicide. The shogun, it is said, has issued a personal commendation to the Lee clan for how they handled the suicide bluffs of Motome and Hanshiro. At the end of his letter, the shogun praises the House of Lee and their samurai as the perfection of the code of Bushido.
That's from the remake, right?
I believe that's in that's in the original, and that they pretty much have the same themes in both of them. They just have slightly different
variations
endings.
And some interesting differences. The senior counselor is the one who ends up cutting off Motome's head in the remake.
Saito, like, I feel like they tried to make Saito a more sympathetic person in the remake, just a bit, because at least, like, he's like, okay, this has to stop. I need to go do it myself.
Yeah. And...
Oh, also, I was wrong. Last week I had said that the guy from Cure was the main character of Death of the Samurai. I was wrong. He's actually he was Saito.
I figured that out when watching. I was like, oh, okay. There he is. Yeah, so, like, I feel like that could, like, even with this kind of contextual difference, I felt like they could have built up that other, what's the character's name?
Hiko, hold on.
Well, anyway, the second who cuts off his head in the original, because there's a scene in the original where he's, like, you know, pretty much part way done, and he turns around and he's like, can you please just cut off my head? And he's like, no, I'm not satisfied. Keep going. And basically, like, eventually, after he cuts off his head. And I felt like they could have, like, played with that a little more, since, like, he refused to cut off his head in this one.
Yeah.
But even then, like, they like, barely even show him, and it's just, like, I don't know. I felt like he didn't have any presence in the scene.
Yeah, like, I get what they were doing. I like what they did, but I do also get him being... I get your complaint.
Yeah. What are some other differences? We get
like I said, there's that big chunk that focuses on pretty much the poverty life.
Yeah.
And they really want you to see how, like, grim it was for them. Like, barely making money. There was a part where we see Motome sell off all his books, and he's... At that point, the pawn shop owner is like, "You want to sell your swords too?" And he's like, "How fucking dare you?"
Yeah, and he ends up.
But eventually, he will go and do that.
2 eggs.
Yeah, he gets 3 eggs, and then fucking kid runs into him. He drops 2 of them, and they crack. And because like he has no money, he just fucking drinks the egg yolk off the ground.
Yeah. And then another one of the differences was there's snow in the remake. I'm not.
Yeah, I thought it was a neat. I like it. I think it introduces like some fun, just visual aesthetics that you can play with.
I liked it in the one scene when they like first drop off Motome's body, but I didn't like it when they brought it into the finale.
Okay, I was fine with it in the finale. I thought it was an interesting parallel to the scene where they drop off Motome's body, because I don't know. I thought it was just a fun visual parallel.
Mm.
Oh, the big difference that I actually really fucking like in the remake. I don't know if you did, but Kageyu, who is not Kageyu, that's fucking Hanshiro, in the remake, uses a bamboo sword in the finale.
Yes.
I personally thought that was a fucking great choice.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I still like the original more, but I like that the remake did that.
Yeah, I like the original more, and I think the finale of the original more hits a little better, but the introduction of a bamboo sword that he still beats the shit out of everyone with, I thought was a fucking great addition.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that the action sequence is really, really fucking good in the original. And I really like the one in the remake. It's the only real problems is there'll be shots where they're going from the outside, going into the inside, but they're still like being shot from the outside before cutting inside. And those scenes are like the inside areas are a little too dark.
Yeah.
So it's a little jarring. So I think just maybe cutting a little before, like right when they jump inside, would have been a better choice. Because it's like literally like I couldn't see anything for like 2 seconds every couple times.
I feel that. Yeah, I thought the remake was just a little dark in general. I remember having like that thought process when they were like in their house when like the wife and baby were sick.
I actually like that it's really dark in that house. I think it lends to that theming of like, because when they go to this Lee clan's place, everything's pretty bright inside, like, and when they go to Hanshiro's house, everything's cold and damp and dark. So I personally liked how dark certain scenes were. It's just literally the final action scene for me was, that was the only problem with darkness I had with it. I think visually this movie does have some really good shots. There's a lot of really colorful shots, like around when life is more happier and jovial in flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really fun, like tree shots, leaves, flowers.
Yeah. What did you think of that, like, painting at the beginning? That's, like, on the wall.
That painting was scary.
Yeah.
I was like, I was watching this with Hinata, my girlfriend, and she was like, is this a scary movie? Like, because also the music at the beginning was like, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Let's actually talk about the music real quick.
Yeah, the music and the opening, like, sequence for the original. Oof. slaps.
It's
Love that.
so fucking good. However, I do really like the music by Ryuichi Sakamoto in the newer one. I know he's done quite a bit of stuff. Like, he did the composition for, like, The Revenant and, like, The Last Airbender. I mean... The Last Emperor!
Oh.
Just...
Okay, I was like, oh.
And I really like the music. I don't think it's as good as the original music-wise, but I think the original had really solid music, but they also were clever in not using music too often.
Mm-hmm.
It had really good sound design in the original.
It
like,
did.
every footstep was really noticeable. The water, like, that was fantastic. However, I do think that Takashi Miike, even the movies that I don't really like of his, I think he's really good with sound design. Like, he hires the right people. So I think the sound design in the remake's also really good. It wasn't as noticeable for me because I think that, in general, Death of a Samurai has more going on during scenes. As in, like, the original wants things to be quiet so you can notice these things, while Death of a Samurai has more stuff on screen happening, so you don't really notice, like, random footsteps.
Yeah. Oh. But yeah.
I do think that Motome's Harakiri is more drawn out in the remake, and I think I don't really prefer either one. I think both are very well done. I think Motome in general is played really well by both people. Although I do have some issues with some of the background characters, like the three retainers, I don't think they really have any presence in the remake. I think that the main people, so like Saito and Hanshiro and Miho and Motome, I think all four of those are fantastic in both versions.
Yeah, no, I generally like the casting all around for both versions. Like I said earlier, I prefer like the original, but remake definitely had a good cast.
And then, like I said, I feel like the big theme difference is the original wants to talk about how the Bushido culture in general is like a scam. It's fake. The samurai way didn't help anyone, and it caused people to die, and they put honor in front of like protecting family, and that's like a bullshit thing to do. While the remake focuses more on how poverty afflicts us and how people hate poor people, pretty much. Because like even the original, they talk about like, we have to make him commit Harakiri because it would go against our honor to not, pretty much. Like, we have to make him be honorable. While the remake, one of the first things they said is like, they would feel disgusted to turn him away and give him money, pretty much. Like, they hate the idea of giving a beggar money, pretty much. And I really like the theming of the remake. Like, I like both of those themes. And that change of theme that I think echoes really well throughout the remake is one of the reasons that it stands on its own, in my opinion. That's why, like, I also think that the ending scene with the Lord returning home in the remake is really good because they all, like, bow down to him and then it cuts to credits. So, like, even though they're supposed to be, like, this honorable thing, they're also powerful, they're honorable. At the end of the day, they're just fucking working for a rich guy.
Yeah.
Oh. So, I think both these movies are worth it, in my opinion. I think that I completely understand why Harakiri is considered like one of the greatest movies of all time by a bunch of people, because I thought it was fucking incredible.
Agreed.
But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the remake as well. What would you, Thomas, what would you give the two movies?
I would probably give the original a 9 and the remake an 8.
Oh wow, okay. I'm gonna give the original a 10, and if I'm gonna be honest, if we had watched this before our episode 50, this would be pretty high up on my list. Like I rewatched a couple sequences after watching Death of a Samurai today, and I'm like, I love this movie. I'm really excited to dive more into this director's work. But I would also give the remake an 8. I thought Miike did a really good job. It's now my favorite Takashi Miike movie, which I'm glad, because now I've seen 6, and I've gotten to the point where I've actually like really enjoyed 2 of them now, and a couple of them I thought were pretty decent. And the first couple we watched I thought were pretty rough. Like Visitor Q was pretty rough, and then like the fucking JoJo's live action wasn't actually like the worst thing in the world, but it was pretty rough.
I disagree, but that's just because I'm a big
You're a
hardcore fan.
Man.
Yes. Biased.
But now I really want to get into some of Takashi Miike's other works as well, because there's a couple trilogies that he's made that I've heard are really good.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say watch both of these. I would say if you've listened to this without watching them, why? You should have watched the original. It's so good.
Yeah, what the fuck?
But I think even hearing the plot and then watching as it unfolds, I think it still has a certain power to it, even if you know the events are coming. Like, yeah, I fucking loved Harakiri.
I agree.
So next week, do you have something for us to watch? Because it would be yours.
Yes. So we're going to be doing a double feature.
Okay.
A certain actor-director combo. That combination is Jim Jarmusch and Adam Driver in Patterson, and is it called The Dead Don't Die? That zombie one?
The Dead Don't Die, yeah. Which I've heard pretty bad things about.
Yeah. I
like Jim Jarmusch's directing, and a lot of the fucking complaints I've heard is he's just being too Jim Jarmusch-y. So, maybe I'll like it. Okay. Patterson, I think we'll both. I've seen Patterson. I think you'll really like it.
I hope so.
Patterson is on Prime Video, and The Dead Don't Die is available to rent from wherever you fucking get things.
Well, there you go.
I'm excited for those. I've been meaning to watch The Dead Don't Die anyway, because like I need to fucking finish Adam Driver's filmography. I keep falling behind. And I've seen most of them. I just need to watch like Dead Don't Die, Lincoln, Silence, and then a couple of like his random stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was looking at his body of work, and he's surprisingly like small. I thought it was going to be a little bit bigger. But. Yeah,
he kind of picks and chooses his stuff quite a bit. But also, like, he wasn't really in a lot of movies until, because he was on that HBO series Girls for, like, 5 years.
Yeah.
And then
hopped over to Star Wars.
Yeah, and before that, he was doing nothing, so.
Yeah.
So he's doing a lot of stuff now, though. I feel like he's in 2 or 3 movies every year now.
Good. I hope it stays that way.
Maybe just 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like 2.
Well, whatever he feels he can achieve without, like, wearing himself out as an actor.
Yeah, I think he did 3 last year. Anyway, it should be pretty epic. I'm excited. And then after that, we're doing a director deep dive. And then after that, I have another television series we're watching.
Yes.
It's going to be epic.
Yes, it is.
It's going to be dumb. I warn you. 3 weeks from now, we're going to watch a dumb show. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
Adios.